Of course, concerns about this country's reliance on foreign oil at the forefront of this week's unrest in North Africa and the Middle East, all escalating. My next guest says, though, that there are alternatives to foreign oil, and those alternatives could bring new opportunities for investors. Indeed. All right, Glenn McCullough is the former chairman of the Tennessee Valley Authority. That's the nation's largest public power company, and he's currently the chief executive of GLM Associates. Glenn McCullough, good to have you with us on Bloomberg.
Great to be with you, Pimm.
Well, before we get to the issue of alternative sources of energy for the electricity generation industry in the United States, what is the oil import picture for the U.S.? Because we mainly use oil for transport and for the petrochemical industry. It's not necessarily a big sort of mainstay for electricity generation, correct?
No, it's not. We import more oil right now than we produce in the U.S. And actually, one way we can become more energy secure is to have more electric cars. Electric cars will lessen our dependence on foreign oil. There are 50,000 people right now waiting for their Nissan Leaf. Ford and GM have both hired 1,000 engineers each to accelerate their production of electric cars. So electric vehicles is one of the parts of the answer.
Is the electrical industry, is the utility business in the United States, are they prepared for the demand if people start plugging in their Chevy Volts and their Nissan Leafs?
Well, great question. The utilities really anticipate investing $1.5 to $2 trillion in the next 25 years. That's private capital investment that will produce jobs here in America. In Georgia, Southern Company is building a new advanced nuclear reactor. It's safe, it's clean, it's scheduled to come online in 2016, Vogtle Plant 3. In my home state of Mississippi, Mississippi Power is building a clean coal, lignite-fueled, integrated gasification combined cycle that will remove 90% of harmful emissions, capture 65% of carbon dioxide, and used it for enhanced oil recovery in wells that right now are non-producing. That'll make our nation more energy secure.
So the idea being that if more people are driving automobiles that you can charge at home, that lessens our dependence on imported oil.
Absolutely. Senator Lamar Alexander and Senator Webb have introduced bills in the past Congress to build 100 new nuclear reactors and to try to achieve a 25% of our cars being electric in the next 25 years. Those are both achievable goals, and they would make America more energy secure.
Now, Glenn, just so that people understand a little bit more about the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, this was something that was formed back in the Depression in 1933. And if we can, just take a look a little bit of the history of the TVA and how it ended up becoming a real, a focal point for the administration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and its efforts to electrify a region of the United States which didn't enjoy low-cost energy.
Well, in 1933, the Tennessee Valley was actually in the deepest depths of a nation that was depressed. And you're right, President Roosevelt signed the act on May 18th, 1933. Actually, it was introduced by Senator George Norris from Nebraska, of all places. TVA was charged with building dams along the Tennessee River and trying to keep electric rates as low as possible to stimulate economic growth. What you've talked about on this show today, we need to make sure that Americans have energy that's affordable and clean that'll fuel a growing economy. And right now, that's a difficult combination.
Do we have an energy policy in the United States? I mean, you come from the energy industry, the TVA and the utility business. Is there a sense that there is a cohesive plan on the part of the federal government?
Oh, unfortunately, the United States does not have an energy policy right now. And for 40 years and 8 presidents, we've talked about becoming energy independent. The time is right for President Obama to call an energy summit, a Camp David-like energy summit with leaders of the Senate and House. And as he mentioned in the State of the Union address, renewable energy is abundant. We have coal, with massive resources of coal that we can cleanly use to generate electricity. Nuclear right now is safe, it's clean, it ought to be expanded. And so natural gas, we have abundant supplies of natural gas. We have sustainable energy in North America, but we need an energy policy that will work for the American people.
Do you think that there is going to be a push from the states in order to get this done? Because we already have state mandates that a certain percentage of the electricity that is generated come from renewable sources, for example, in California. Is that where the push is going to come from?
That's right. About 27 states right now have a renewable portfolio standard where they're calling for a certain amount of their generation to be from renewable sources. I believe that it's better for states and people at local regions of the nation to make those decisions on which energy resource that's renewable and sustainable works best for them, rather than a federal mandate of one size fits all. We have to have diverse energy sources.
So does that highlight why it's so difficult to have a comprehensive and cohesive energy policy? Because you have the federal government looking at it from Washington, and then you have all of the individual states looking at perhaps what their supplies of energy and also what their interest groups want.
Yeah, that certainly is a stress point, but that's the reason that we believe that leaders could come together from all across America and say, hey, here are the energy resources that make sense. We can have a cleaner environment, we can have a growing economy, and we can invest private capital, trillions of dollars of private capital, and also create jobs for Americans generating energy right here on shore.
Well, just use that as an example of creating jobs in the energy industry. Would the government have to come in, let's say, for nuclear power to be more viable? Would it take bigger government guarantees, either on the insurance front or the permitting process? What would have to happen in order to spur development of nuclear power? I know that at the TVA you're working on Watts Bar 2. That's a second nuclear power plant. How would that work? How would you encourage nuclear power?
The one thing that the federal government could do, and it could do today, is award more loan guarantees for advanced nuclear reactors in this country. They've awarded one thus far. There's a South Texas nuclear power project near San Antonio. There is a nuclear reactor plant in South Carolina. This would not cost the taxpayers anything. It would simply be a backstop by the federal government that the utilities would pay for, that would enable them to go to the markets and have affordable financing. Loan guarantees for advanced nuclear reactors in this country make a lot of sense.
Do you always get the question then, all right, we're going to add more nuclear power to our arsenal. What do we do with the spent nuclear fuel? That's been an issue that's been around as long as we haven't had an energy policy.
You're right. It has been. And today you can store all of the commercial nuclear used fuel on one football field beneath the goalpost. We can store used nuclear fuel until such a time that we choose perhaps to reprocess it. It can be stored safely. It can be stored on site. We think that a single repository for storage and retrieval of used nuclear fuel makes the best sense for the American people.
And you connect that to the grid, and you connect the grid to electric vehicles, and hence you're reducing our dependence on imported oil.
Hey, you just pretty well described it. You're exactly right. We need more advanced nuclear. We also need clean coal. There is a place for renewable energy, and of course, we have massive natural gas resources that can be used. We really need all of the above in order to become more energy secure and to have a cleaner environment.
Do you see also the advance of solar power as being part of this?
Absolutely, particularly in states like Arizona and California where they get a lot of sunlight. Solar power works really well. Solar power is not so good here in the Northeast.
Particularly on a day like today where you have it overcast and raining.
Now down south, in southeastern states, we have biomass resources. So renewable energy fits where we have those resources.
All right, I want to thank you very much. Glenn McCullough joining us from GLM Associates, the former chairman of the Tennessee Valley Authority. Thank you very much for your insights.